So, hi everyone, and welcome to the third Hello Zafigo that we are conducting. This is our way of connecting with all of you. See, during this MCO period, during this lockdown period, since we can't have our usual events and everything. And so far, we've had about once every 3 weeks or a month. We've had two events already, and this is our third one, and we are planning at least another two. So if you all like this, we'll carry on, because this is the new normal, right? That we are now doing everything online, which is quite fun actually. You don't know what we're wearing in our bottom half, right? We just have to dress up the top half. um, so today we do have something quite special for you. It's Mental Health Month, or Mental Health Awareness Month, right now. And it's particularly important, I think, this year because of the fact that we're all kind of under lockdown. Although in some places it's been lifted a bit, but in a lot of places it's still pretty much restricted. We can only go out to do certain things under certain conditions. In Malaysia, we're all into masks and sometimes gloves and everything. We're trying to avoid seeing too many people. And being at home has been challenging, I'm sure, for all of you, not just physically, because very often we don't get the exercise we normally get. We have to motivate ourselves. I must say, motivation is down. I think partly because for a whole month I've been fasting during Ramadan and very little exercise, and now having to rev it up again is difficult. But besides the physical difficulties, a lot of people have also been having difficulties trying to stay upbeat, trying to stay optimistic, and try not to worry so much about the future, which is so uncertain. And there's certainly a lot of um, very crucial things that we need to think about for the future. So we keep talking about the new normal. Uh, what it looks like, we don't really know. But what's clear is that we do need to adapt to that. And how do we do that? So for today, we have a very special person to help us with this issue. And we're very happy to have today Amanda Luukinen, who is a health coach, particularly when it comes to things up here, right, Amanda?
Yes.
Well-being. Everything begins up here, right? And then it goes down and helps the rest of us, the rest of our body. So Amanda, let me tell you a little bit about Amanda. She is originally from the Pacific Northwest in the US, which, if any of you have ever been to, is a beautiful part of the United States. A bit rainy, but otherwise very, very pretty. And used to be in the corporate world, like a lot of us, but decided there's more important things in life, right? So she traveled, lucky for us, she traveled out to Southeast Asia, originally to Thailand, which is where everyone goes because they've heard of it and they've never heard of Malaysia. But luckily, she heard about Malaysia when she was in Thailand, came over and decided that we are it, right? And that's how she's been here. How many years now, Amanda?
4 years now.
4 years. You're practically Malaysian. So yeah, so she's been here and she's been working at helping a lot of women to live life well, as a certified wellness coach and founder of Always Live Well. And she supports women in learning how to be in good health in all areas of their lives: mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, which is sounds like a really good deal all around. She provides a safe and compassionate space for women to feel supported to make long lasting changes in our lives. And I think that's what we're all kind of being forced into change. It's very clear that things do need to change if we're not to go through this incredible period ever again. We need to be better prepared, obviously, in every way. Clients learn how to trust in themselves, strive for learning in place of perfection, express their needs and desires, and feel deeply empowered to live life as a woman. And she supports a lot of women through personalized coaching sessions, online programs, speaking, writing, and workshops. So we're very, very happy to have you with us today, Amanda. Welcome.
Thank you so much for that grand introduction. that was wonderful. Thank you. And thank you so much for this invitation to be able to share my thoughts and experiences on this topic. So thank you very much. And hello to everyone.
Hi. So the way we're going to do it is that Amanda's going to talk for a while. And after that, I'll ask her a few questions that are burning in my head. And after that, we'll open it up to your questions, which you can do through the chat. Um, we'd really like it if you all keep your mics muted, simply because if you've been doing Zoom, you know that if you so much as sniffle, we'll hear it. And you might not want us to hear every single thing that's going around in your background. So we'll have to mute you all. As far as video, you can keep it on or not. It really doesn't matter, um, because we're looking at slides. If you keep it on speaker view, I think, or even in gallery view, you'll see the presentation that Amanda's going to do in a short while. So, any other housekeeping? I think that's mainly it. So let's begin, Amanda. Why don't you start your little talk, and then we'll chat again afterwards.
Fantastic, thank you. I'll try to keep it as short and succinct as I can. I'd like to first preface this talk with the way that I approach mental and emotional health is that it is a spectrum. That spectrum is relative to whatever's going on in our lives at any given moment, and we can move along that spectrum. Today, I'm going to be sharing some tools and some information that's going to help us to shift along that spectrum to more towards where we want to be. As a health coach, I don't give medical advice. So everything that I share with you today is for informational purposes. That's my disclaimer that I need to put in there for my professional self. But first, I would really like us to all just take a really deep breath, the deepest breath that you've taken today, and just settle into this space and close the apps and all the other things that are happening, all the distractions that are going on around you, and just allow yourself the permission to come into this moment now and stay with us as long as you can, hopefully for the whole time, but I invite you to really be present. So I'm going to lead us through a few different topics today. The first is really the foundation, which is to shift our mindset. How do we do that? The next thing will be, how do we live well while staying still? Because we can't travel. Many of us are travelers, and that is the platform that Zafigo really empowers us as to do as women, is to travel. And now all of a sudden that's been taken away from us for now. So how do we stay still? As well as sharing some simple tools that you can use now to help improve your mental and emotional health. The two of those are very linked, so I will talk about them somewhat together. So our first thing is how. How do we shift our mindset to embrace these changes? Now, people everywhere are saying that we're not going back to normal, to the normal that we've always known and the normal that we felt pretty comfortable with. All of a sudden, that's not available for us anymore. The biggest shift that I've noticed in myself and with those that I've shared this with is that we are not going back to the old normal. We are now moving into the new normal. And that means that we have to accept that fact, accepting the new normal. And that's really our baseline. Acceptance is a challenge, but it is possible. And if we think about the way that we live, life is really boring if things never change. Things are changing all of the time. Yes, they're changing on a very grand scale at the moment, but change is the only constant in our lives. And it's not as big and scary as sometimes we think that it is. So that is really that shift into, I'm going to accept that I'm not going back to the old normal. I'm going to accept this new normal, whatever it brings. So the next thing along that is to learn how to be in the unknown and be well in the unknown. So the unknown is actually all around us all of the time. And you can think of it as being in a dark tunnel. So in this dark tunnel, you know that there's a light at the end, but you don't know how long it's going to take to get to the light. You don't know what's going to happen along the way. But the best thing that you can do is accept that you're in the tunnel and allow yourself to flow through that darkness and understand that in that space is where all of the opportunity lies. That's where potential is. That's where opportunity is in this unknown space where things haven't been decided yet. So really, the unknown can be this incredible space of opportunity. So we are accepting we're not going back to the normal. We are learning how to be in this unknown. And another thing that helps us really to do that is to adopt this learning mindset. Now, if you're in the education field, you may have heard of Carol Dweck. She calls it the growth mindset. Simon Sinek calls it the infinite mindset. I like to call it the learning mindset. And that simply means you're open to learning. It's okay not to know. That is a learning mindset. The next thing is to adapt. Marina, you've already touched on this. Adapt, adapt, adapt. In case you didn't get that, it's adapt. This is one of the things that humans can do so well when we allow ourselves to do it. We are extremely adaptable. All that means is that we adjust ourselves to the new conditions. For example, we've had to adjust the way that we communicate. So this was going to be on a live platform with everyone all together in a big room. But now that's not available. So we've adapted to use Zoom in this method of communication. See, we're doing this all the time, but we sometimes forget that we are really able to adapt. So where we come into some struggles and some challenges is when we resist the need to adapt. We find ourselves stuck, and that doesn't feel good. And if we go back to not accepting the new normal, this will present itself in that way of wanting to go back and not accepting that, okay, I have to adapt to this new set of challenges. So you can adapt, you can keep trying new things, keep learning as we go. And this is the mindset that we are going to carry forward with us that can really help us to shift into embracing all of these changes. So again, shifting the mindset is comprised with accepting the new normal, being in the unknown, adopting this learning mindset, and adapting to our new environment. So the next thing that we're going to go into is, how do we stay still? Because so many of us are travelers, and whether we're going great distances or small distances, we're simply used to being able to move around a lot. So the first thing that I would invite all of us to do is to really think about, what did travel give you? Why do you travel? What is it that you experience when you travel? So really just take a moment to think of a couple things. So the invitation here is, how do we find those things in our everyday life? For example, if you travel to find beauty in new places, how can you find beauty where you are now? Maybe look a little bit more closely at what's going on around you and find that beauty. I know for me, when I go, now we can go out for walks. So when I go on a walk, I always pass this frangipani tree, and I always pick up one of the flowers on the ground and smell it. And just that allows me to experience that beauty and that aroma. Even though I'm here, it transports me to Indonesia in a minute, because that's the first time that I smelled that. And so we can look for those experiences in our simple everyday. They are available for us if we look for them. The next thing is, again, going back to this adaptability. When we travel, we instantly are put in a situation where we have to adapt. Anytime we are exposed to new conditions, we must adapt there. Now what we're doing, though, is taking that experience where we'd normally be going out, and we're taking that and bringing it in. So we have to adapt to our home environment. So it's a kind of a reversal. Normally we're outside adapting to what's outside. Now we're adapting to what's happening within our space. So really being able to adapt at home. I know many women now, and men as well, are finding it difficult to work from home, take care of children from home, take care of other people in their family, and cook and clean and do everything. So being able to adapt in that way to your home environment is really key to being able to stay still. The next thing on this topic is to get creative. How can you create those environments that you would travel to in your own home? So how can you be there while being here? One of the things that I love to do is to daydream. I give myself permission to let my mind take me somewhere else. And it's in an intentional way, just allowing myself to drift off to a place that either I want to go or I've been before, and having that experience happen in my mind. Our minds are incredibly creative and powerful in that way if we simply allow them to be. Another thing I love, like I talked about the frangipani, but that's smells and scents that can transport us to other places as well. Our sense of smell is incredibly attached to memories, and that allows us to either imagine a place we've already been, or imagine what it would be like in a new place we want to go. Another way to experience this is through food. Let's say you had a trip planned to Rome, and now you can't go to Rome. How can you bring Rome into your home? Maybe through dinner. So you cook an Italian dish and play some Italian music, and really allow yourself to get creative and create that Italian experience in your own home. So really this is about allowing ourselves to harness the creativity that our minds already have. So being still, just to recap, is being able to find the experiences that we get from travel, being able to find those in our everyday, being able to adapt to our home environment, and allowing ourselves to be creative. So that's how we can, some of the ways that we can stay still and feel really well. So now I'm going to give you a few more tools. I've already given you a few tools, but these are some effective tools that you can use right now. And anyone who works with me knows that I like to keep things simple, especially if they're actions to take, because I find that if they are small and you can do them, then they can be sustainable. They can create sustainable change, because we all know what it feels like to have too many things to do, and we find ourselves shut down and can't do anything because there's too much to do. So one of the first things that I always recommend is to create some sort of mindfulness practice. Now, I know that mindfulness is this big buzzword, and a lot of the times it gets overcomplicated. The way that I think about mindfulness and the way that I define it is bringing your awareness to what's happening within you and immediately around you now. That's all it is. Some of the ways that we can do that are through things like breathing. So when I first started this, I needed to get into my space, and you probably did too. So we just took a breath. And especially breathing, it forces you to come into this moment, because breathing happens now and now. And so that forces you to be in the moment and blocks us from going other places, either past or future. Another way that we can do this is through things like meditation or journaling. There's many ways to cultivate mindfulness. Choose one that you like and incorporate that into your day. Another thing that I find very, very helpful is to create check-ins through the day. So what I mean by a check-in is that you simply stop and check in with yourself. What am I thinking? How am I feeling? What do I need right now? The way that I like to think about this is in the morning, in the afternoon, and before bed. Are really good times to check in with yourself and just, what do I need right now? Another thing it's a tool that takes some practice to learn well, and that is to discern, to use your discernment, your own best judgment. Now, the way that I really would encourage you to use this is when we're considering what external things are we going to allow into our internal world. So that can be things like the media. It can be things that friends or family are saying. It can be social media. It can simply be the amount of time that we spend outside of ourselves thinking about everything else that's going on. And in that time, being able to make a judgment, is this healthy and good for me? Or does this not feel very good and I feel like maybe it's unhealthy? Being able to make that judgment call is really important to be able to keep yourself feeling well, especially mentally. So discerning, using your best judgment. And finally, is to ask for support. The key word there is ask. Ask for support. So I would encourage you right now to look around you and think about who is there to support you. Who could you call right now and ask for help? Some of us might have 5 people. Some of us might have 0 people. Some of us might have a lot of people. But this is very unique to you and who you consider your support and who you're going to ask for that help when you need it. That being said, once you discover who those support people are, the next step is to break them into the kind of support that they can offer you. Is it physical support? Is it mental support? Is it emotional support? And creating that support system, I know for myself, this makes me feel so much more secure and stable if I know I can pick up the phone and call this person if this happens. And it creates this sense of stability and safety that is, I feel and I see that especially as women, we need that. So the tools again are creating mindfulness, some sort of mindfulness practice where you're aware of the present moment. To check in with yourself and be asking yourself, what do I need right now? To be able to discern what's healthy and unhealthy when it comes to external things that you're allowing into your world, and then asking for support. So my job here was to provide you some strategies that can really help you to shift your mindset, to be able to be still and find some of those things that we love about travel and going new places and find them every day. And then also these tools that I've shared with you that you can use every day, and you can use them now to really help yourself. There are many other things that I could share with you here, but I hope that you found a few things that are useful. I love this quote from Rumi that really kind of puts things in perspective. But the way that I really love to always leave with is a question or a point of contemplation for you to take away. And what I would like you to think of is this thought. In the future, when you look back at this time, how are you going to end this sentence? And the sentence is, remember back in 2020 when the world stood still. How do you want to end that sentence? All right. That's what I have for you for now. So
that's great, Amanda. Thank you so much for that. A lot of food for thought. For everyone who's been listening in, do submit questions you have through the chat box, and I'll try and go through as many of them as possible and put it to Amanda. But meanwhile, I just want to ask Amanda a couple questions from your talk because it set my mind thinking. Normal is not always the same for everyone, right? So I'm just wondering, like, does that, different normalities for people, will that affect your ability to adapt? Do you think? My normal might be a lot easier than a lot of other people. What do you think?
That's an amazing question. So is your normal, does that dictate your ability to adapt? Yes and no. I think it's relative, really, especially when it comes to what we need to do to adapt. Of course, there are people with different sets of circumstances and resources, and for some people, I know that this point in time has meant they've needed to adapt in maybe bigger ways than other people. It's all relative to your circumstances. So yes, it can definitely be a factor. I think there are some people who's, for example, my set of circumstances didn't change that much in terms of the way that I work, because I work from home. So when I stayed home for 7 weeks straight and I actually didn't leave the house, it wasn't so bad. But I know other people who are used to always being out, it was really, really difficult. And so yes, it can present different challenges. And there are other people who have lost a loved one at this time. And those are unimaginable circumstances at any point in time. but especially now, their way of adapting can look a lot different than another person. So it asks us to really call on compassion for ourselves, of course, but compassion for others, and to do what we can, of course, to help others. So if we have an abundance of support, we're able to support others. But adaptability, yes, it's an absolutely fair point. It can be directly related to your set of circumstances, and the challenge to adapt can be greater or lesser depending on that.
Right. And talking about support, I was thinking, especially for women, a lot of times people come to us for support, right? I mean, we are the rock that everyone revolves around. So we're constantly giving other people support. So what if, and people assume that we don't need support. And I think that's a lot of the danger for a lot of even for very independent minded women in this era, that people assume that because you're the one who's always helping other people and supporting people, that you don't need support yourself. So it do you think it'll be harder for people like that to ask for help? And where would they go if they had no one else? Like everyone else is so needy. um yeah, where would they go? Do you think it should be hotlines or counseling lines or whatever? Is that a good first stop?
Well, I think in terms of what you first said about women are particularly the ones who get asked for support, especially if you're already in a support type of role. Yes, because people know that they can go to you for that. But it is one of the things that I see most commonly with women that I work with in my own life, with the women that I know, is that we find it hard to ask for help.
Yeah.
And it really is one of those mindset shifts as well, is being able to say, I need help, or realizing what that feels like when you're overworked, when you're stressed out, when you are on edge and you're just so overwhelmed because you spent so much of your energy outside helping other people that you don't have enough in to help yourself or to get support. So asking for support, yes, we have to make that shift within our mindset that says it's okay. I actually have to ask for support. And then also, like you said, where do we go? I think this is one of the points where it's really helpful to think a little bit outside of the box, with where you can find support. And sometimes we have to create that support for ourselves. I know for myself, the support that I've wanted in the past, I now create for women so that they can have that support that I knew I wanted and needed. And within that, I find support for myself too. But these are the types of things like women's circles, and even just a coffee date, or there's online therapy. There's people like me who are health coaches, who are kind of that more approachable middle ground where you can find a lot of support from. So there are a lot of options out there, but we sometimes need to think outside of the box.
Okay. We're getting some questions now. So here's a question from Allison, who says, how about just accepting when we're not feeling good and enjoying that moment itself? Because she said, I have the impression that sometimes the simple fact of trying to go well puts pressure on us and makes the situation worse. There are days we feel great and others we don't. But if we push ourselves through tactics to go well when we're not, we get frustrated. And on the other side, if we just accept it's a bad day, we enjoy the next good one much better. I feel it's more about self awareness. So, I mean, should we allow ourselves to indulge ourselves or be kind to ourselves when we're not feeling so great?
Allison, this is a brilliant question. Thank you so much for asking it. I love that you've brought this up because it was something that I wanted to touch on, but I didn't know if I'd have time. And yes, it's exactly that. It's that having that self-awareness and the ability to say, today I don't feel good, or I feel this way today. I think that especially as women, we have a tendency to want to hide that and put on that face that says everything's fine, it's bright and sunny and beautiful, where it's actually one of the best things that we can do is really to feel all of those feelings, feel the spectrum, and allow ourselves to take that time, have that check-in point be maybe when we are feeling really low, and just, yes, give yourself permission to feel sorrow, to feel really afraid, to feel really anxious, or whatever it is that's coming up for you. Feel that, because the more that we push it aside, the bigger it gets. I love to think of the analogy of emotions and feelings as visitors that are coming to your house. So imagine that your house is your mind or your body, your space or your heart, and this is your house. And there's a constant visitor coming in that's a different emotion. So joy can come in and gently knock at the door and, hi, I'm here, and it's all nice and wonderful, and you feel really good when joy's in your house. But then maybe fear comes in, and fear doesn't knock gently. Fear pushes down the door and just gets really big and loud in your house. And we usually want to get away from that. But if we let fear in, sit with fear, get to know fear, recognize fear, then when fear comes in next time, we think, oh, I know you. Okay, you're here. I'm going to sit with you for a while. I'm going to let you go. And then let something else come in. So I love this analogy of allowing the emotions to come in and giving yourself permission. And like Allison said, having the self-awareness that you don't feel amazing all the time. You don't have to.
Great. There's another question about self check-ins. You mentioned check-ins. The question: what if I find that I'm feeling down or I'm needing something that I cannot get at the moment? So, yeah, actually, I was wondering about the check-ins. Like, how do you check in? What are the things that you tick off when you check in?
So a check-in can be unique to you, but the things that I think are the most helpful, that I find the most helpful, is usually how am I feeling physically in my body? Because usually our physical feeling is a bit easier to, it's more tangible. How am I feeling in my physical body? What's happening in my mind? What are the thoughts that I'm thinking right now? And starting there, then we can start to get to know our emotional state as well. But that's a little bit beyond that. But within that check-in, if you're feeling like low, like we just talked about, allow yourself to say, okay, right now I feel this. And sometimes even just acknowledging that's how you feel at that check-in feels better. It gives you a sense of relief to acknowledge, oh, I feel this now. And then, like I talked about, having that support system to be able to call someone, also having those mindfulness tools to be able to, journaling in particular doesn't cost money at all. And it's something that you can do at any point in time. And that it's like your own therapist. I like to think of it. Is your journal. So I would encourage you to set up that support system. Be honest with your check-ins about, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? And sit with whatever is coming up.
Great. Here's another question, which I think also applies to me. Since we're all at home looking for things to do, one of the things we do is tune into social media, which is not always the most positive thing to do. So how do we manage that? I mean, some of us have to be on, but there is a lot of noise, a lot of negative noise, and it's not so easy to just switch off. What do you advise for that social media?
Um, this is one of the topics that I really like to talk about, because it is such a challenge, and it really is in the face of all of us. But a few things that you can do, which are features that most of us have on our phones, are to first set a timer that this is the amount of time that I'm going to put in. You can literally set a timer on your phone and have that be the cutoff. Start to become aware of how you feel when you're looking at certain things. Find those triggers for you that start to take it from a positive learning experience to a spiral of maybe shame or guilt or fear, whatever comes from that. You can unfollow those people. You can stop looking in those places. But it comes from self-awareness, from setting your own boundaries with how you're going to use social media, and being intentional about why are you on social media in the first place? What is it that you're getting from this experience? And bring yourself back to that intention. I've got an article that I'm transitioning to my blog that I'll make sure is up as well, that helps go through some of these steps.
Right. We have two questions which are very similar, because they're both about the people around us, and how we can help them and how we can help ourselves. One question from Sufia is, my father-in-law passed away recently, and I noticed that my husband has deprived his sadness and avoids expressing his feelings. And so, how can I be in support to him? I don't want him to numb his feelings, but I feel helpless when I can't do anything. So, that's one question about helping someone else around. The other question is similar, from Vivian. What if we are calm and feeling okay, but others around us are not? Right? So similar. But if they are our loved ones, we can't push them away or belittle their issues. But after listening to them on a regular basis, won't their anxiety have an effect on us, affect us too? So it's kind of two similar but different sides of the issue.
First and foremost, to Sophia, I am very sorry about your loss. And with that, I would say both of these, what's coming to my mind is healthy boundaries. Also, to touch on helping someone else who you see as suffering. We are all entitled to our own unique experience of every emotion that there is. Everyone will present differently with that emotion. I don't always like to do the male-female thing, but in general terms, what we see is that men are more inclined to isolate, to shut down, and to shut off when there's big emotions or something that they can't solve. And so allowing that process to happen, and in that time, making sure that you are keeping yourself well and doing the things that bring you joy, and making sure that you're healthy, so that when he is ready to open up or wants to talk about it, you can be there to support him that way. But I would also ask, how would you like to be supported? What can I do to help? And be open to whatever that is. If it's, I don't want help now, then it's, I don't want help now. And of course, there is always a fine line of, especially when we talk about mental health, there can be a point in time where someone is potentially going to harm themselves or harm other people. And so we always have to be aware that that is a possibility. So we do need to take things seriously. This is not my intention there is not to say ignore him, but allow him to have the space. And that being said, with the boundaries, with other people experiencing negativity around you, the ability for you to put a boundary in place that says, I can talk to you, whatever it is. A boundary is basically, when this happens, I feel this, so I'm going to do this. Having the awareness to know when there's too much of this negative talk, I feel anxious, so I'm going to remove myself from the situation or take a break, go in the other room and communicate that. So healthy boundaries and patience.
Right. So here's another one from Allison, which is, I think, also very pertinent. Sometimes it's just physical. What about the impact of our menstrual cycles? Whether this is something that you addressed when you coach. In our world frame for bias towards men, we tend to plan daily because men function on a circadian rhythm, whereas women actually function on an infradian rhythm. Hence, we can feel overwhelmed. Our brain functions can change up to 25% due to different hormone levels at different times of the month. Since I became aware of this, how it impacts mood, energy, the type of food activities we should favor. Also, it also helps with the self-awareness and accepting the usual ups and downs, making the most of the ups times while understanding and nurturing the down times. How about that?
It sounds like I would love to know who's asked this questions, because it sounds like they've been listening to Elisa VT. That is Allison, you're speaking my language. Yes, indeed. You're definitely speaking my language. Wow, periods are one of my favorite topics to talk about. But yes, this can, life in general, the way that we're living in the male-dominated world and the constructs, like she said, certainly don't work well with our own natural rhythm and cycle as women. What I have seen and heard a lot about is that because of this lockdown situation, or whatever you want to call it, MCO and that sort of thing, it can directly affect your period. So many women are having worse symptoms now because of, or having very irregular cycles, because a lot of this can come down to stress, to a change in sleeping cycles. A lot of women are saying that they're having totally different sleeping cycles. So yes, it can definitely impact the menstrual cycle. There's a lot more that she's touched on there. That would be a totally different conversation. We could talk for way too long about that. But I would say, yes, try and get yourself back to as much of a natural cycle as you can, with your sleep, with the amount of rest you're getting, with not pushing yourself when you are menstruating. And yes, I think the rest of that will be a topic for another time. It's a lot there.
Thanks. Any more questions from anyone? Because we have about 12 minutes. No, I can't count. 6 minutes left, sorry. So if there are any last minute questions that you'd like to ask Amanda, I just want to remind you also that Amanda will be writing an article about everything that she's talked about today, which will be on Zafigo website. Plus, we are recording this session, and it will be up also on Zafigo at some point. So you can revisit everything that we talked about here today. There's another question from Adrian: how to help young children live well through this period? Oh my goodness, the number of stressed out mothers during this time.
So I can't speak on this because I don't have children and I haven't been around children during this time. However, I have been a primary school educator, and I do have, of course, friends, family, clients with small children. I think really the key here is to really do whatever you can to be present for their experience. Children often show us more, they feel what we're feeling, but they feel it in a very outward way where they really display what's going on. And being able to really be with them and sit with them, and also being able to, with work boundaries, communicating to whomever it is that you're working with that you do have children and you may need to attend to them, and being really transparent about that. Small children, I'm reading the chat here about I miss the playground, I miss the swimming pool. Absolutely. It can be another way to be creative and to think outside the box about how can we bring some of those fun experiences into our house, or into the home environment, and letting children express themselves, and it's okay that they're okay, and it's okay that, or excuse me, it's okay if they're scared, but it's also okay if mom and dad say I'm scared too. It doesn't, we don't always have to be the hero and the brave person. We can experience things with them as well. So I be present, be creative, and reach out to other moms and to other dads and parents, and those types of support networks that are really out there. There's all kinds of Facebook groups and chat groups, and people have created community groups and that sort of thing. I know one of my nephews was feeling upset that he thought maybe his friends are going to look different because he hadn't seen them in a long time. And so my sister-in-law got on the iPad and had a couple friends call so that he could see his friends, and then he was okay. So it's just being present, and yeah, letting them experience this too.
Great, thank you. We only have 3 minutes left, and wow, our participants are coming up with ideas of what to do with kids too. So that's great. I think everyone can see their suggestions. So finally, one last question for you, Amanda, from me. We like to end this with a kind of a life lesson question. If you could give women one advice that you've learned through your experiences in life, and not just, I think, not just your experience in coaching people, but your whole journey, um, what would it be? What would be the one thing you would advise women? Because obviously you've been adapting all the time. Your life has been all about adaptation. So, what would you advise?
Yes, my life has been about adaptation, yours as well, and everyone's really has been. The one thing that has been the most difficult lesson for me, but the most powerful, is that I don't ever need to be perfect.
Yeah, very good. Yes. And I also like what you said earlier about it's okay not to know.
Mhm.
Um, I always get asked all these questions as if I'm the oracle, and sometimes there's really too much pressure, and I say no, I don't know anything about that. So yeah, that's great. If there are no more questions from everyone, I just want to thank everyone here today for joining us. And like I said, Amanda will be writing more about this on Zafigo. We will also put up the recording, but I'm sure you can also reach out to Amanda through Instagram, through email. I think you can see on your screens how to get through to her if you have other questions. That's all right, isn't it, Amanda?
Absolutely. Yes. You can reach me on Instagram or my email.
Great. So I want to thank everyone once again, and I wish you all well for the rest of this lockdown. Hopefully, it won't extend too much, and whatever the new normal is, I hope we do get to experience it in a safe and a secure way, and it wouldn't be too disruptive to all of us. So, thank you once again, and do look out for the next Hello Zafigo session, which will happen in a couple of weeks, I think, and that should be very different, but also very interesting, hopefully. Thank you so much again. It's on the 13th of June. That's the next one. So it's about 2 weeks' time. And by that time, hopefully, we're all able to be out there safely. So don't forget, stay safe, wash your hands, wear your masks, and keep to social distancing. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.